I'm going to take you back. Do you remember that scene from The Godfather Part 3 where Michael Corleone says, "Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in"? Well, that's the case for our first guest. Shern-Min Chow just retired after 30 years at KHOU, and this morning we're pulling her back in, not to work, but to share the lessons revealed in her new novel, If Not You. As a journalist, she's been a writer for decades, but in this case, it's not a news story. The content comes from an inspiration and creativity. Good morning.
Thank you so much. It's a thrill to see you again, Deb.
You were saying I'm kind of thrown off here. I'm used to having this IFB in my ear and getting ready to do a news story and anchor. Okay, so how's it been the last, how long has it been since you formally retired?
Well, that was in February, so about a month and a half maybe. So not that long, just, several weeks, and it's been great. I'm sleeping almost 8 hours a night.
Oh, wow, now you're bragging. Now you're bragging.
I know, and that feels, you know what? Doctors tell you to do that. You know why? Because it works.
Because it works.
It's good for you.
Oh my God.
I'm living evidence.
Yeah. All right. Spending 30 years, it's interesting because there are a group of people who get to meet you when you first come into the business. And now there's a whole new generation for both of us who are just now meeting us, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Or grew up with, I love when people say, "I grew up with you." I'm like, man, you were older than me. You did not grow up with me. you grew up alongside me. But the daughter of Chinese immigrants, your first language was Chinese, went to Yale University, graduate of U.S. history. Your parents initially wanted you to pursue law. We talk about this all the time, that there are so many different cultures where it's doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. And I think for my mom especially, oh, there she is. This is when we were little. Obviously, it's my brother and me, and my mom. And yeah, for her, it was this, she called it that TV thing. She couldn't really process it. And she would say, well, if you do this for 5 more years, this TV thing, what will you become? What will you do? And she actually, when I first started on air, there were no other Asians on TV. So, some folks did little reports and stuff, and one reporter spoke to my mom. And my mother literally tells this reporter, she goes, well, my daughter quit school to do this TV thing.
Okay, never mind the Yale part that we just talked about. Yeah.
I said, no. She means I didn't go to graduate school when she said I quit school. She doesn't mean I did not finish high school.
Yeah. What does she think now?
She's better about it.
She's better.
She's come to accept the. In life you cannot change everything.
Now that you've retired, maybe you could go to
I could
law
go
school.
to law school now.
Yeah. You met your husband in college. You're all college sweethearts, and have 2 beautiful boys.
Yes, they're in their 20s now, and one was home. The younger one was home last weekend. The older one is home right now. So, they come home from time to time, and a couple times a year. That's great.
So in this market, you were an equal opportunity employer, or actually you're an equal opportunity employee because you worked at several stations here in town.
Right,
you gave us all a chance. We're glad that you gave KHOU the longest chance. But you're known for so many stories that you've covered, and you did the presidents to prison inmates. You've done all that stuff. But one story that people oftentimes remember over and over again is, in fact, I run into people and they'll say, Shern-Min Chow, I remember she almost got swept away in a storm.
Yes, yeah. That was a hurricane very early in my career, and it was, back in that day, there was only 3 TV stations, and we got caught in the storm as it made landfall. So we got blown around a little bit, and to this day, I mean, that's over 30 years ago, I am amazed, but people will still, like, if you meet someone on the street, they'll reference it. They'll say, I remember that hurricane.
It went viral before there was a thing called going viral.
Right, well, in the old days, because there was only, the 3 TV stations with the 3 letters. Yeah. So ABC, NBC, CBS.
All right, I'm going to go back to something you touched on, being the only Asian in the market, in Houston being the most diversity in the country, that you were new in the market.
Yeah. I think that is, when you are the introductory model, if you will. So people, may go, oh, I haven't seen that model before.
Yeah. There's a new model. Hey, y'all see that new model over at the station? Right. What story, I know this is like saying which one of your sons do you love the best. What story stands out in your mind the most?
First of all, as I always tell my children, the son that just most recently did the dirty dishes, that's the one I love the most at that moment, right? And I think you will understand, right? It depends on the story, it depends on your moment. But I was remembering one that stands out to me over the years was a young soldier. He had served overseas, I can't remember if it was Afghanistan or Iraq, and had come into contact with some kind of terrible chemical. And we met him, he was 19 years old, and he was dying. And he knew he was dying. And the peace and the calm that he had, that kind of maturity was just stunning to me. Yeah. And he said to me, he was completely clear-eyed, he said, "Tomorrow is promised to no man." And he has come to terms with it. Yeah. And you know what? It's been decades, and it still makes me emotional.
Yeah. Instead of focusing on dying, which a lot of us would do, we'd spend if somebody said we had an hour to live, we'd spend the next 59 minutes worrying about dying.
Right, and being angry.
Living. Right?
Yeah, right. And it was, I guess, about 2 months after we did the interview, I think it was his sister who called me and said, "We just, thought you want to know that he passed."
Yeah. Wow.
And so it was, but it was just a lesson in grace and humility.
Yeah. And why we do what we do. Obviously there's the news stories that we're saying, watch out, be careful stories, but then there's the stories that we say, stop and think. We know the world's spinning really fast, but stop and think, and that's one of those stories that makes you stop and think. You've always been a great storyteller of getting that message across. But this way you get to, with this new book, to tell kind of a different story in a different way. So tell us, has this book always been brewing in you, and what's the premise of it?
No. This is a story, it's based on a cancer researcher at MD Anderson Hospital. She's there today working on cutting edge stuff, man. Yeah. And I met her through my sons, actually. The older one was an intern in her lab, and he'd come home and tell me these stories about her, and I didn't believe they were all true. I thought, how it's like, give me about a 50% discount on that, and maybe that's about right. And then I met her, and it was like, it was all true and a lot more. But so the story is about character and integrity and choices that you make in the hardest times of your life. And it starts with her. She's nearly killed in a fire. She's in this hospital. It starts in India. And the doctors all say, you know what, don't bother bringing family in. Just prepare to transport her body back home. And she won't die. She is just like that. Yeah. She's just not going to do what you tell her, right? And she meets a boy. They're from a different caste, so they can't marry. So they make this promise that if they cannot marry each other, they will marry no one else. And so if not you, then no one else. And they honor this vow for 10 years. And during that time, all this other stuff happens, and she learns that if not you is also a challenge to herself. Like, if not you, who will speak the truth? When everyone tells you, keep quiet, don't do this, it's gonna go bad for you. And if not you, who will stand for those who truly cannot defend themselves, speak for themselves, stand for themselves? And even against threats, when everything else can go wrong for you, to be willing to take that risk. And how the universe, when you least expect it, will reward you
when you do the right thing
for making really hard choices.
Yeah. And then when you see just different, you studied U.S. history at Yale, so you look back and you look at the people, when people stood up, it wasn't easy, but the changes that happened were better for everyone, right? What have been readers' reactions so far? Because you're one of those people as an author where they can come up to you and go, I know you, and I got your book, right? Yeah.
You know what? It's really been sweet. Somebody texted me. I got a message about 2 nights ago, and one person said, "Oh, that was so great, I could hardly put it down. I could see this as being like one of those Netflix streaming series." I'm like, well, if you know someone, give me a call.
Yeah, Netflix, Hallmark, all that type of stuff there, yeah.
But people have really been positive about it. I think it's about, I feel like it speaks to our better angels. And we can all use something in our life, at an unexpected moment that you recall that kind of helps you. And
it will speak to something that a lot of us have already been through. If you live any life at all, there's been touches of this. I call it emotional mapping. I can put myself in that character, or in one of those characters, or certainly in those situations. All right, now we have unleashed an author in you.
Yes.
Is there another one coming?
Not at the moment. I do have some ideas for podcasts and some of the things I'm actually thinking about, like you could do like a series of podcasts and then write something parallel to it. but right now I'm just focused on this, trying to get the word out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so much for retirement. You're right. You're like, retirement, sit back, go fishing, do this type of stuff. You're probably going to work harder now than you ever have before. But the thing is that you get to wake up when you want to.
That's exactly right.
Shern-Min, great to see you again.
Thanks. And if I may, it's available on Amazon, and I think maybe we have a QR code, I'm hoping.
Well, how about this? If Not You is available now on Amazon, like she said. And for more information about the book or to connect with Shern-Min, visit greatdayhouston.com. All right. And so you were saying, where can they get a QR code? Is there a...
Well, I thought we had it for the screen, and I think we're looking for it. There it is, right there on the bottom.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to talk to you for 5 more seconds so people can get, there's a QR
Get your
code.
phone,
Point your phone toward it.
So there's a fabulous audio book with a wonderful actress who does justice to all the different accents.
Yeah.
And so if you want to listen, ebook, print, it's all
we
there.
have rush hour traffic here in Houston, so you can listen to this book.
That's
and be
right,
intrigued.
Chill out between downtown and wherever home is.
All right, Shern-Min, thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah.